In the sprawling, vibrant heart of Lagos, Nigeria, Samuel lived in a world of stark contrast. Every morning, he traversed the boundary between the destitute slums of his neighborhood and the gilded, high-security gates of the Palm Springs estate. As a groundskeeper, Samuel's life was measured in the rhythm of his shears and the stubborn persistence of wits. He was a man who owned 2 shirts, 1 pair of work boots, and a boundless reserve of quiet dignity. His pride and joy was his 12-year-old daughter, Adana. She was a brilliant student who studied by the flickering flame of a kerosene lamp, yet she never complained. Every evening, when Samuel returned home smelling of damp earth and exhaustion, she would run to greet him, her face beaming. "Papa," she would say, "I learned about the history of Nigeria today. The honest men are the ones who build the nation, right?" Those words were Samuel's shield against the harshness of his reality. The turning point came on a Tuesday, a day when the Lagos sky opened up in a torrential downpour. While frantically trying to cover the estate's expensive, imported garden furniture, Samuel spotted something caught in the drainage grate, a dark, heavy leather satchel. It had likely been jostled from the back of a luxury SUV during the chaos of the storm. When Samuel pried it open, the sheer volume of cash inside made him reel. It was millions of naira, neatly stacked, crisp, and terrifying. In that moment, the world stopped. He thought of Adana's leaking school roof. He thought of the eviction notice taped to his front door. He thought of the years of humiliation he had endured, being treated as invisible by the very people whose lawns he manicured. The money wasn't just paper, it was a ladder out of the mud. He took the bag home. That night, the temptation was a physical weight in the room. He could hear the rain drumming against the tin roof, echoing the pounding of his own heart. But when he looked at Adana sleeping peacefully, unaware of the fortune inches away, he realized that keeping it would mean he could never look her in the eye again. He had built his life on the foundation of his word. Could he burn that foundation for a temporary escape? The next morning, Samuel walked into the corporate office of the billionaire who owned the estate, Mr. Okoro, a man known for crushing his competition and ignoring the plight of his workers. When Samuel placed the satchel on the desk and recounted how he had found it, the room went cold. Mr. Okoro didn't thank him. He didn't offer a handshake. He counted the money with a cynical sneer, then looked at Samuel as if he were a bug. "How much did you take?" Okoro demanded, his voice dripping with condescension. "You're a poor man. I know you couldn't resist a taste." Samuel stood his ground, his face calm. "I took nothing, sir." Okoro threw a small, insulting bundle of cash toward the floor, barely enough to cover a week of groceries, and signaled his security to remove him. Word traveled fast. By the time Samuel returned to his neighborhood, the story had morphed. People didn't see an honest man, they saw a fool. Neighbors mocked him, the shopkeepers wouldn't give him credit, and even his landlord called him a useless man who traded his daughter's future for a rich man's smile. For weeks, Samuel was a pariah. Then, the inevitable happened, the estate was sold, and the new management let go of all the old staff, including Samuel. He was unemployed, his reputation in tatters, and his family's survival hanging by a thread. But there was a witness to that day in the office, Chidi, Mr. Okoro's personal assistant. Chidi had spent 5 years in the belly of the beast, forced to witness the massive, systemic corruption and fraud that kept Okoro's empire afloat. Chidi had been terrified to speak out, knowing that anyone who challenged Okoro ended up ruined or disappeared. Chidi had watched Samuel walk out of that office, humiliated, poor, but unbroken. Chidi realized that Samuel was the only man in Lagos he could trust with the secret archives of Okoro's crimes. One evening, Chidi knocked on Samuel's door. He didn't offer sympathy, he offered a mountain of digital evidence. Ledgers, offshore accounts, and signed documents proving that Okoro had been laundering state funds for decades. Samuel didn't seek personal vengeance. He understood that integrity was about the greater good. With the help of an independent investigative journalist they reached out to, the evidence was published. The fallout was instantaneous. The government, under immense public pressure, launched a massive investigation. Mr. Okoro's empire was seized, his assets frozen, and his corrupt influence wiped away. The state offered a massive reward to the whistleblowers. Samoa received enough to secure Adana's education through university and provide for his family's future permanently. More importantly, he was appointed as the head of a new community trust, using the recovered funds to build schools and clean water systems in the very neighborhoods that had once mocked him. When he walked through the streets now, the people who once called him a fool stood in silence, bowing their heads in respect. Samoa realized that the foolishness of his honesty had been the most courageous act of his life. The world will often call you a fool for refusing to compromise your soul for temporary gain. But remember, the man who steals to win is always a slave to his secret, while the man who chooses truth is finally, truly free. Your integrity is not a burden, it is the only asset that the world cannot truly bankrupt.